Buenos nachos, amigos, and welcome to Record Breakers, a podcast where a group of friends is gathered together to share music with each other, an album at a time. It's like a little book club for music. It's a fun time had by all. I'm PETEY RAVE, and I'd like to think I'm a good friend, but I have my doubts. Here with me is my team, my squad, my chosen family, as it were, my crew. We've got David.
I don't know how I got chosen. I'm pretty fucking terrible.
We've got Matt.
Just once, please, could I get some hi-fi beats to chill and or study to?
Mm-hmm. And we've got Brett.
Hey, how's it going, guys? I'm totally prepared for the opening of this show with a pithy remark.
Exactly. It all worked out. We're here to talk about music. We're here to talk about an album, and I'm the provider of the album this week. As we start our rotation, I provided an album that before I picked it, I hadn't listened to, but it was very buzzed about because it was just released like last week as of this recording, I think somewhat. And it's from an artist that's been getting a lot of buzz since her initial EP. Or her initial EP release, and the singles following that, and quite a lot of buzz for having a nice pop sound that's kind of peppered in with other styles. We're talking about the Japanese-born British artist known as Rina Sawayama, and her official full-length debut, Sawyama. Yeah, let's talk about expectations. Brett, what were your expectations coming into this album?
I mean, the shock to everyone. I wasn't really aware of her at all or her music. I did do a little bit of research because I wanted to know where I was pointing with this because, I read that this was on the Wikipedia page, it listed genres of electro pop, alternative pop. And when I Googled photos, I saw like that modern Ziggy Stardust style of art portraits. So I was like, yeah, I got a hunch. This is gonna probably be like, the colorful, like over the top, like modern pop music, I guess, is kind of everybody's got wild. That is the style of today, and I was almost right.
Yeah, almost. We'll get to that. Matt, what were your expectations coming into this album?
Nothing in particular. Just kind of knowing you, I figured it would be some, knowing it's Japanese as well. Seems like that placed it squarely in the J-pop adjacent category, but that was pretty much it.
We'll talk about how close to the mark that is. It's more British by way of Japan, but yeah.
Okay. Show down.
David, what were your expectations coming into this album?
My expectations coming into this album was something that is a bit of a deviation from the standard East Asian modern pop music that PETEY normally brings. kpoppodcast.com. Listen to Ali Ujuku. Because that's generally the impression that I got when I was doing the research. And I always enjoy when PETEY brings us something on this podcast that's a little removed from the K-pop/J-pop factory, the collective. Resistance is futile. And I was looking forward to hearing what Miss Sawayama had to say.
Yeah. Yeah. So musically, it's interesting. Unprompted, that it brings up the Asian pop scene. She is Japanese born, but she is raised in the UK. She was raised in London. So this is very much stylistically somebody who grew up in the West, whose formative years were in the early 2000s. I think that if we can go into a lot of the different styles, but I think the best way to the best umbrella description is somebody whose teen years were in the early 2000s making a deeply personal record. And that is what influences this musically, because you have a lot of the influences from the early 2000s pop. Like there's Britney influences, especially her vocals. She's cited Pussycat Dolls. She cited, there are many of those influences. There's also new metal touches here and there, and some rock touches, that come up, and those are fantastic when they appear. But they don't feel gimmicky. They feel like they fit in the personality and the emotion of the song. This is a personal record. This is she's using her last name specifically, because this is about her growing up, her family. There's songs about her family, her parents, and things like that. They're about her extended, like we said, when we talk about the track, we'll talk about the specific track, but her chosen family, her actual family, people that are around her, friendships, her self-identity, things like that. And I think those are the big things that define this musically and thematically. And I think that to its credit, because it's done well, and she has a fantastic voice. Her voice is strong, and I think it works beautifully in all of these songs in a way that isn't like vocal gymnastics. I think, at least to me, there's enough power vocals there for you to, if you like that, but I think they're done well, and they're used in the right way, rather than just trying to do a difficult routine just for the sake of it. Music is sports, and I think it is a cool record. It's a fun record to like go through, and there's plenty of it's still pop music, so there's plenty of songs to like sing into your hairbrush and dance around to, if you want that.
Petey, is there something you're trying to tell us?
That this record is fun? Yes.
No, I mean, have you been singing into your hairbrush? Not that there's anything wrong with that. In fact, I'd like to see that.
He has actual microphones he could sing into.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's not the same.
Yes. I have a Shure I have a Shure microphone somewhere.
You've got
here.
the wireless stuff too somewhere, probably too. You can take it on the road.
That would be a lapel mic, so but well, actually,
the hairbrush is about the aesthetic.
Yeah, that's true. It's about letting loose.
I got $1 million idea, guys. What if they made a microphone and it looked like a hairbrush?
Yeah. Sure.
Now
Perfect.
you're talking.
Sennheiser, call us
Now
up.
we're cooking with canola.
Get a hold of me,
oil.
Bob Heil.
Yes.
He would do it.
He would.
on a lark.
He would.
Speaking of Bob Heil, Brett.
Let me get on my ham rig and
How
get
would
on
you
the
describe
30
this
meters.
How would you describe this out musically?
Okay, yeah, it's modern pop. It is also it's from when I did research, I saw that this isn't the first musical endeavor that she has done. She was in a hip hop and an indie rock group before, so I kind of expected some of those influences to come in, and they did, but not either in indie rock or hip hop directly. It just this isn't just a straight up pop album like Petey said. There's some of my favorite metal of the new kind. Not at all. There's something important about the fact that I'm not 100 years older than this performer. So I kind of was a contemporary. There's only a 5-year gap between us, so I can recognize some of the influences. One that you didn't bring up is there is so very much like a Mariah Carey mid-90s, with the chimes and the bells that goes on. There's some of that, but the style is very much unlike what I would expect from domestic pop or even anything from Asia. There's a very harsh and stilted, almost shoehorned in feeling with some of the lyrics. In a chorus, when you repeat the same word multiple times so that you can hit all of the beats, it almost makes it sound like you had the backing track before you had the lyrics, but I don't think that's the way it is. There's quite a mix of sounds. This is obviously somebody writing about a personal experience, and that comes through. But I'm not a lyrics guy, so when it comes to the music part, it was obviously like recorded well. There's some neat little effects that get used, some use of stereo effects. There are also songs that are written in ways that are very, very different from the verse to the chorus. And there's some other things that I'll get into when we break down in songs. But yeah, this is very much not. This is not what it is on paper. There's a lot to this.
Mm-hmm. Matt, how would you describe this album musically?
It kind of had a lot of pretty typical contemporary pop feeling, except it did have these flashes of metal, and I was kind of picking up on kind of 80s hard rock in a way in certain aspects.
What, squealies? But you talk about pitch harmonics?
That and this certain
crowd effects, the crowd effects,
distorted guitar and harmony that has a particular timbre that immediately brought me to the 80s.
Somebody got their Tom Scholz Rockman gear. Yeah, it's that.
Yes. Yeah. And it just as a side note, please credit your musicians. If nothing else, just have somewhere where I can go to find like, damn, that's a bitchin' guitar solo. Who played that? I don't know. I spent a while searching. I still don't know.
Mm-hmm. David, how would you describe this album musically?
I do think that this falls under the category that I've been using quite a bit, the post-genre category. The comparison I think you could definitely make is I Disagree, the new album from Sumerian Records artist Poppy, where she's taken the metal and hard rock influence and really leaned into it. Rina Sawayama here had that in splashes, along with 90s and 2000s R&B, along with flashes of the hard rock and new metal that's already been mentioned. As has already been said, it's an extremely personal record, to a fault, one might say. And I like that this was, it definitely sounded like an artist that did not have anyone telling her what to do. And a lot of times in pop music, anywhere in the world, everything is so tightly restricted. And it was cool to see someone seemingly being allowed and able to stretch her creativity, and I think that worked out really well here. You'll see and hear some really interesting artwork, some images, and some really interesting compositions chorus-wise with R&B beats that are kind of syncopated with some metal guitars here and there, and the occasional, dare I say, almost Aguilera-esque vocal power. All around, just it sounds like a mishmash, but the entire album as a complete package, it kind of comes together and works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, it is a beautiful album on that regard. And we get into some of the tracks. As we get into some of the tracks, we can pick out some of that stuff, because we'll start with Excess.
PD, don't do every track on the album.
I can do a lot of the tracks. I am going to name, but I'm not going to go into depth to all of the tracks. I'm going to name quite a few tracks, but I'm only going to go into depth on a couple. Like Excess does a really good job of being Britney or Pussycat's Doll.
Yeah, that's right.
I like it.
Attorneys General or mothers-in-law.
Like
that's correct. That is correct.
Ends of roads. I forgot what cul-de-sac. I forgot the word cul-de-sac.
Yes.
The plural of cul-de-sac is cul-de-sac because it's French.
That's a great band name.
Yes. Excess. Yes, it's Pussycat Dolls. As she cited Pussycat Dolls, what it brought to me was Britney, early 2000s, but with like a little bit of like that new metal feel in those interludes, but mainly in that like those hits after like the verses, and it just kind of comes out like, I think what it does is it it illustrates, she's singing about, celebrating these excesses and these beautiful, like, things that she has, these grand products and things and purchases, and then you see that those kind of underscore it with a unsettling feeling with those new metal hits. I think that's where it really works thematically. Speaking of new metal, we also have STFU. No, not the original name for John Cena's STF. For those that remember it, his STF. But a fantastic, like, new metal influenced, like, anthem to just say "shut the fuck up," and it does say "shut the fuck up" repeatedly. So you should probably
not just inspired.
Several
there are things that are
times.
straight up lifted.
Yes, and
But
those are
yes.
fantastic. And we can go on to something like "Comme des Garçons," like the boys. This is definitely about toxic masculinity and overconfidence, and kind of like how kind of breaking that. And it is straight out the ballrooms. This is a song for the ballrooms. You can listen to the song and imagine Billy Porter in the corner going, "And the category is," right there. So this is
opulence.
exactly, and it is such a fantastic. You can vogue your heart out to the song. You will be dead dropping like nothing, like nobody's business. Just learn how to do a back bump first before you to do the dead drop. Just kind of brace yourself. Tuck your chin.
Tuck your chin. Tuck your chin.
Tuck your chin. All right. There's also Akasaka Sad is fantastic, of like a song of her legacy, a song of her upbringing. I also love when she describes it, struggling to write the Japanese part, which as a Cuban American who can speak Spanish but not extemporaneously, and who forgets a lot of words, I can feel that. And Bad Friend and things like that. That was a feeling I had. And Chosen Family, which is all about the queer community and the LGBT community, because that connection of going through the same thing, not necessarily being of blood or of relation, but going through the same thing. And she sang it for them. I sang it for, I loved it also for connecting to any community where you feel in place that doesn't necessarily have to be your or your blood family. I'm fortunate enough that I have a fantastic blood family and a fantastic not blood family. But for those kind of communities, it's great to have that. And I like that this celebrates that in general, and specifically for the LGBTQ community. Yeah, let's go to you guys after I went ahead and named all the songs like I was told not to. Brett, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Well, when you hear your family, STFU, having a mix of drop-tuned new metal and, in the verse part, and then the bells and chimes in the chorus. Both extremes are almost to the point of parody, but especially the part that was almost exactly the freak on a leash, the wee, that with the bass guitar that is so detuned that it's rattling against the fretboard new metal style, everybody's favorite except for me. And again, Comme des Garçons, which I learned today was a Japanese fashion label. It's a dance track, and it's very clear the message is it's a rejection of traditional masculinity. It also has sort of an imported 90s feel, like an imported 90s pop feel, I guess I should say. It's not quite, there were at points that I don't know, like it reminded me of being in a bowling alley in the late 90s, but I don't know if it's the music coming from a Sega machine or if it's the music coming from the jukebox. But there's something about the the way that they made like it. I don't know if it's like quite Euro beats, but it's very of a
house.
kind that
It's very house. It's very like
yeah,
Euro house.
but
things
it's
like,
not exactly like it's taking from that in a way that is so close, like and it's cool, like that's they've been doing that in other genres too, and I found that noteworthy. And also Snakeskin, you have Almost. So remember when Vanilla Ice was recorded talking about how he didn't do the under pressure dun 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 dun, like yeah, it's not that close. It's not like him like trying to but almost with the Final Fantasy victory tune, like almost, like almost.
I wonder because she is a pretty nerdy chick. I wonder if there was
nobody accidentally does that.
I wonder like it was like there was an original raw like demo version of that song where it actually is, and they had to.
I guarantee. It's just missing like
there's no wondering. There's no wondering, PD. That happened.
Yeah,
it's there.
Like,
it exists.
And it's like you don't even have to be that deep into the culture to know. Oh, hey, that's the thing that all the Final Fantasies did. But like to put it into a song, yeah, you on your debut album, like I'm picking up what she's laying down, and every time I heard that, I was like, wait a minute, because I don't know if you know this, but there's a lot of that noise going around these days.
Yeah. Matt, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Dynasty. I just wanted to call it out for the really nice guitar solo that I couldn't find who played. But yeah, it was very Boston-esque in a way, very Tom Scholz effects inspired.
You hold that note and it goes on for like 3 weeks.
Yeah, just that perfect tone. Played in unison with a synthesizer, even with the bends, which was impressive. Then Comme des Garçons, I found myself bopping to this a little bit, which is always a good sign for me, because a lot of them it's like, is this song done yet? Well, I keep listening, I guess. But this one I found myself grooving, and at the end. And I can only imagine it was inspired by Uptown Funk. She's going, I'm so confident, which is really similar to Uptown Funk You Up, Uptown Funk You Up. And I just kind of did a head whip double take. And so
Matt whipped his hair back and forth, everybody.
That's right.
Absolutely. And lastly, I'll whip my hair back and forth. And
that was the game trailer cover of the game trailer cover. That's Matt's. Yeah, that's my imitation of Jimmy Fallon's imitation of Neil Young singing I Whip My Hair Back and Forth. Paradise, and another really nice groove. It was really dynamic, which was nice. It went up, it went down, it went up, and it went up some more, and then it went back down. And about halfway through, I just had this thought of, this is kind of almost a Boys of Summer vibe. Just something about the way the rhythm was going, something about the drums. And of course it had a truck driver key change, which was disappointing, but
yeah, I saw that too. It was great. Just downshift. Here we go.
Yeah. And then lastly,
I liked the key change in Paradise, and I even wrote it in my notes. I liked it.
It was nice, but
it's a thing.
It was nice.
It had a saxophone
trope, and tropes aren't necessarily
bad. It had a saxophone.
It's a trope, and tropes aren't necessarily bad, but it's a trope.
Exactly. And lastly, I just want to point out that they ended the song by doing a descending major scale, which made me involuntarily go, cha-cha-cha.
That is fantastic.
Cha-cha-cha.
Yeah. Exactly. David, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
I enjoyed the syncopated singing in Comme des Garçons. It reminded me a little bit of a Flint Flossie song and I loved it, baby. Love Me From Me was a straight up New Jack Swing song, so that was an immediate win. A New Jack Swing song with a modern day self-love, self-care message. So that one was a win. And on the song Who's Gonna Save You Now, you hear Rina Sawayama show a little bit of vocal power under all of this pop music production that you don't see or hear too much anymore. She belted out a little bit in that song, and that was impressive. Also, Tokyo Love Hotel. It's a song about weeaboos and how they don't really care about Japan, and definitely not as much as she does. Also, the final track on the album, Snakeskin. I think that this was a rare example of a song with interesting vocal harmonies that don't have a ton of lyrics, but it also doesn't come off as undercooked or lazy. The harmonies in that song and the beat under the second verse is absolutely fantastic. Just a really well-composed, well-arranged song. And as I mentioned, Paradisen had saxophones, so that was also a plus.
Yeah, it's fantastic tracks. Let's bring it back around the horn, talk about some conclusions, some conclusive thoughts. Brett, what would be your conclusion on this album?
I mean, folks, I'm a casual observer of pop music, and I do it from afar. And I've brought pop albums, but I mostly enjoy the spectacle of pop music, the wild, the way that pop music ages so very quickly in ways that other genres don't. I like the absurd attention grabs, the strange market, the spectacle. I have an unrefined palate, but if you put this album at most of this album, I guess, and put it A/B tested me between this and something that you made up off a playlist of Audio Network stock musics, I may have some issues because so much of this is put together like you would put together a pop album, but there are some things that make this different, and it's not exactly for me. It never really is. I'm not really the target demo probably for most pop music like this, but I was able to find the things that made it different after listening to it. But I don't know that this is not a life-changing album. It's not like hearing William Shatner say, "Come on," because I have to talk about it. Come on, let's go space trucking.
Let's go space trucking. Come on.
That changed my life forever. That is by far, there is never going to be somebody who covers Deep Purple that I won't immediately think of William Shatner. And
you're welcome, Brett.
Thank you. I really, and this album was not that, but I enjoyed parts of it, but this is really not for me, which is, again, that's a me thing, not a you thing.
Exactly. Matt, what would be your conclusion on this album?
It was a perfectly good album. I don't expect I'll be going back to it. Again, I also am not really the target demo for this music. It just, my interests lie elsewhere, and that's fine. There were certainly aspects that I could kind of latch onto, and a few that I generally grabbed my attention, which was fairly surprising. Quite often, if I'm listening to an album, it can just fade into the background, but there were a few times that it just kind of jerked awake and went, "Wait, what was that?" But it's certainly not going in my iTunes library. It's fine.
Mm-hmm. David, what will be your conclusion on this album?
PETEY Rave, good brother. I've given you a lot of shit for how much East Asian pop music you've brought to this podcast since I've been here. And I want to,
and before.
In front of many times. And I want to personally and publicly in front of the based God and all of the internet apologize to you. Because I'm going to go ahead and say that this album may very well be my favorite album of 2020. I absolutely loved every single track on this album. I think Rina Sawayama is exceptionally creative as an artist. She has a very good team around her, and her tastes and sensibilities for crafting pop music in 2020 are second to none. In my opinion, there is not a single bad track on this album. There may have been a few moments here and there, but if I were grading this, it's probably about a 97 out of 100. I think that post-genre stew pop music is definitely a thing that is in and should stay around for a while, and this is the best example of it that I've heard to date. I nearly stole PETEY's gimmick and wanted to talk about every track on this album. That's why I said that earlier, because I might have done that myself. I think everything about this album, lyrics, composition, production, fantastic. I'm going to say that this might be my favorite album of 2020, not just for the Record Breakers podcast, but in general. Nice. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah. I'm glad, because if there's one goal I have on this show is to make at least one person, if not a couple of people, go, wow, I've never thought it to check this out. This is great. And that is kind of like what I pick, part of why I pick albums, or for a multitude of reasons. I want to delight the crew, at least one of you guys. And I think I'm glad you did, because I definitely enjoyed it. I think this is I'd have to think hard about any other album that I would have enjoyed more this year. This is a really fantastic, complete record with honest themes, really great personality, and then really great musicality. It is that nice mix of genres, that nice mix of sounds. It is influenced enough by earlier things to satisfy just that little nascent part of me that is nostalgic about music from like a couple of decades ago. I'm not a super nostalgic person. I have bad memory, so it's hard for me to be nostalgic for things. I don't remember my childhood. I was in Little Havana for a while, and then I went to school, and then at some point I'm here. I don't know. So I'm not a super nostalgic person, but I do have my moments, and it tickled enough of that to be enjoyable. And I think it's enough of a modernization, and brings enough to the table that it is a great modern pop record. It is a great modern pop sound. It brings so many things to so many different people. It has so many great empowering themes that I think it's just that is a great reason for it to exist. There are valid criticisms. Specific, I didn't realize it, but yeah, they should probably have a personnel list somewhere online.
It probably exists
just
somewhere.
Be nice.
It's
I don't know. I don't know if I have to order the physical CD like to get it, but
credit your session musicians, people.
Yeah, I would imagine that they are contractually going to get credited somewhere, someplace. So
yeah.
Probably in the CD at least.
Yeah,
that's one reason. That's one argument for keeping physical CDs around, is for the complete liner notes.
Yeah, but
yeah, that's fair.
In a square this big, and then you can fold it on its side and roll joints on it.
Yeah.
Oh wait, that's a record.
Yes.
Sorry. Those things are terrible.
Those are great keepsakes. But yeah. This album is beautiful, fantastic, personal, honest, and empowering, and I'm glad it was released. I'm glad I listened to the buzz about this and got to check it out and brought it onto the show.
Thank you for bringing it, PETEY.
Yeah, and I'm glad I was able to do that. I mean, obviously, it's very much being buzzed about by a bunch of other media outlets, and we're going to be among many. But we're not a review.
We're the
outlet.
only one
no.
that matters.
That's not what I want at all.
Yeah.
We're
I don't wanna
capturing the zeitgeist.
I don't want to be a part of the zeitgeist.
Exactly.
Damn right.
I don't want to be the news.
We're not the review. We're not a review outlet. We're just a bunch of friends sharing music with each other. Be like, hey,
We are
no,
a
we are-
source.
We are taste
Record
making
Breakers podcast
influencers
is your source. Your number one source.
we
for
are
the
your,
opinions of American men across mostly the Eastern time zone.
and one guy from the Central, and then
Yes.
that's about it. One dude from Texas.
That's right.
One dude from Texas.
And one dude from Philadelphia, and sometimes if he comes back, one dude from Pennsylvania who's now in Texas.
He's been a local. He's a lifer. He's
Well, that's everybody in Austin. Everybody that moves to Austin, they
Yeah.
move to
Everybody
Austin.
wants to be the last person to move to Austin.
yeah. I mean, he didn't come from California, so they don't hate him
Not
that
doing
much. So.
Yeah.
Not doing it.
That's true.
No, I
Never
am
gonna
moving
do
to
it.
Austin. I am thinking about moving to Atlanta, but that's a side note.
Hey, that's a good city.
Mm-hmm.
Hey,
Damn good city. That being said, other than the governor of Georgia, but that being said, those are our thoughts on Rina Sawayama's debut, Sawayama. Now we get to the main event of the evening. We get to our haiku reviews, which is always funny.
yeah,
when
it's
we do it
great.
with a
Yeah,
Japanese artist, especially one
Yeah.
that probably
Sorry,
does
Rina.
pay to-
Sorry.
Sorry, Rina.
I
It's
mean,
our gimmick. It's our
yeah,
gimmick, Rina.
and it
I'm sorry.
rhymes. It rhymed. We're not the only person that came up with that because it rhymes.
Yes, exactly. So we give our thoughts in the stereotypical 5-7-5 format. Yes, giving them to those stereotypes. But it's fun.
Sorry.
It's not misappropriation, at least. I hope.
I mean, we thought of other kinds of poetry. I mean, Beowulf is just one long poem, right? So,
Yeah.
like, you know,
Slam poetry. Kaz, we
do
had
that?
Kaz
do like
come
a
on and do
Episode of the
beta test.
podcast where- could we do that where we do it like rock opera style?
Yeah,
I mean,
we did have Kaz come on and beta test something we were workshopping where it was just freeform poetry after consuming alcohol.
and he became the poet laureate of Record Breakers podcast
we
at that
had
moment.
we had him do it. Figuring it was a beta test, not from us, so all the blame could go to him. That makes-
The Fugees, go back in time.
Should I
Listen to the Fugees episode. It is
Should
one
I do
very,
another
very. I was probably drunk too.
Influence?
It was a
Should
long
I
time
do
ago.
another episode under the influence of drugs? PD?
I mean,
Always.
yeah. Oh.
How would we-
I will do that. I'll be under the influence of Tylenol. At some point.
I wasn't.
that hardcore acetaminophen.
Yes. All right, let's get down to it. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. Haikumero numero uno. Brett, what is your haiku?
Pop music debut that's well reviewed. Not really for me.
Mm-hmm. Matt, what is your haiku?
Pop with touches of hard rock and heavy metal. Not really for me.
You need a drum head.
I do. If anybody knows of a drum head that will fit this, please contact me.
Yeah.
I'll
gotta-
send you dimensions.
You probably just call somebody
Go
in
out-
Miami or Puerto Rico or something. You can find those.
That would be the place to get it.
Yeah.
You can find
PD,
livestock
do you know a
around.
guy? PD, do you know a guy?
I don't off the top of my head, but I imagine if I tried, I could. David, what is your
Matt,
haiku?
send me the invoice. My haiku. Cohesive. Earnest. Best pop I've heard in ages. Do I stan Rina?
Hell yeah. Hashtag Stan Rina. Hashtag Stan Luna, Stan Rina. It's all together.
You know, I'm happy that you enjoyed this so much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brett.
I'm happy
I
for
am
your
too.
happiness.
Yes.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Matt.
Even though it doesn't make me enjoy it anymore.
All right, my haiku. An early aughts kid broadens their pop repertoire with great, honest hits. And those are thoughts on Rina Sawayama's Sawyama, a fantastic record that you should check out on our Spotify playlist. Play Record Breakers the home game. Do your due diligence and your due diligence. Follow along at home. It's in the show notes. If you're wondering where it is, I always say to go there. But if you're wondering where it is, it's in the show notes on our website, which is recordbreakerspodcast.com. Every episode, I copy and paste the same little block of text that includes that and a couple other links, including the music that plays at the beginning and end of the show. This guy, the end song is played by that guy in the other corner.
And I paid him money to commission him to do it.
You did.
Like you're supposed
Pay your
to.
artists. Pay your artists. Support your
Exactly.
artists.
Exposure
You
don't pay rent.
sponsored. Yeah. People die from exposure.
That's right.
Exactly.
It's true.
That being said, on our Spotify playlist is going to be next week's record, and it's going to be provided by David. David, what do you have for us next week?
P-Rave, Record Breakers listeners and fans, we've been on a bit of a streak of self-titled albums recently, and try as I might, I was not able to break up that pattern, because I like breaking patterns. We're going to go
Combo breaker.
I got that reference. We're going to go to the year 1994, and we are going to get the second album from British recording artist Seal.
Oh my God.
With his second album titled Seal.
Yes.
I was there for that.
His
This is gonna
second
be fun.
album and his second album titled Seal.
I actually have that.
Yeah, I like that.
You can pull it out when next time. It's like, here it is.
I
Got the
was hoping to
physical.
see his face.
I know.
Like,
I don't have the physical one.
yeah, it's
Oh.
the having things within reach for props. That's the
Yeah.
hard part. Like,
I am
uh,
shocked I
They're
had
called
that
gimmicks.
drum in reach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had been thinking about moving it into a closet somewhere.
Yeah.
well, it served a purpose. So
It
I'm
did.
glad.
And it made it all worth it.
All right. That being said, we look forward to discussing that album next week. But that is next week, and this is this week. And you can, of course, find us all over the internet. David is at Call Me DJM. Brett is at HIBBARD, HIBBITYBIBBARD. Matt is at MRiddickW. I'm at PD Rave. The show's at 4 Record Breakers. That's the number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com. RecordBreakersPodcast@gmail.com is an email you can give us your feedback to. Tell us what you think of the record. Hit us up. Rebelli.net for this and other shows. And for all the show notes and things like that. Rebelli TV on YouTube and on Twitch. We're streaming now as we're recording this. You can also see me stream other things, and I'll probably stream this and Halijuku when we do Halijuku again, which we haven't done in a while. But once we start,
KPopPodcast.com.
yeah, K-pop
ding that
podcast.
motherfucking bell.
So hit the follows, hit the subscribe on YouTube and hit the follow on Twitch. And you can be updated in what's going on and what comes out and when episodes come out, because I'm also bad at social media, so I'm bad at tweeting, but I'm good at uploading.
Yes, he
So I
is.
put the onus on you. That being said, go check it all out.
That's fair.
Subscribe, like, share. Find us on everywhere you find podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud. Do all the things. Hit the bell. Slap the walrus, spank the monkey. Until next time.
Wax the weasel. Shave the sheepdog. Orient the ocelot. You know what to do.
Hasta los huevos.
Toodaloo.
Rebelli Podcast, baby.
Glenn Fossey is my favorite rapper.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.